Sabonani, welcome i-podcast Yabantu, podcast ebukela ngedatha. Mina lemibizo nguJoyful Sibonga ko Ncube mphuma phansi lapana esigodini eMangwaneni. Namhlanje siliphathele one of our leaders esisababona kakhulu besebenza kakhulu kithi but ngizothaze ethule. Welcome sir, linjani?
No, ngiyaphila Joyful, akambonge.
Yes.
Ukuba ku podcast Yabantu okhulumayo ngunobhala welizwe, Secretary General webandla elidala Zapu. Mthulisi Hanana.
Bandla elidala. Sithe sikhula thina vele yilo kade silazi sisizwa ngalo sisizwa futhi kakhulu, may his soul rest in peace, ubaba Mqabuko Nkomo. Yibabantu esithe sivuleka amehlo sezwa ngabo. Yizaphi esikhuluma ngayo?
Yeah, iZapu eqale iSouthern Rhodesia African National Congress isrank.
Yeah.
Evolve ngenxa yepolitiki ezazikhona ngaleso sikhathi. Yaba iNDP, yabhanwa ithe sibhaniwe yasisithi ngo1961 mhla ka17 December, yaqala kubizwa kuthiwa nguZapu. Yahamba ithe Sibangilizwe yaba ne-armed wing which was called Zebra. Yeah. And then yahamba ithe sifika ngo1980 for election purposes saba iPF Zapu. 1982 to 87 besiku Gukurahundi yasibulawa sagcina sesizanu PF. 2008 we started a process of pulling out of Zanu PF. In 2009 we pulled out via Congress and we went back to being Zapu. So we are still the very same Zapu like 1961.
How do you become Zanu PF? Were you swallowed or were the negotiations ukuthi okay njoba nango se kuthwase sithole uzibuse? How do you guys get into that?
This is one of the saddest chapters of the history of our country, because one of the things that we must accept ukuthi ilizwe leZimbabwe was fought for primarily by Zapu and Zebra.
The Zebra forces.
That is why, I mean, most of the political leaders that you have ngabantu abaphume ku Zapu.
Yeah.
So Masters Tolosbose, the government at the time knew that there was a lot of chicanery surrounding the electoral outcome of 1980. So Mugabe ube ngenelisa ukuthi angabusa alala ubuthongo. Ekwazi ukuthi kule Zapu le Zebra ebingathithwanga kahle,
knowing their capabilities.
Esazi ukuthi the best army that we had at the time was Zebra. So if you look at the developments of between 1980 and 1982, you could tell that Zanu PF did not deserve to be in power for a number of reasons. When you look at the economic front, Zapu had amassed wealth, properties, land, buildings, and arms that were more advanced even than that of the combined Zanla forces and the Rhodesian army. You would also discover that at the time Zapu had a government in waiting, so we were ready to govern as Zapu. Now you then find Zanu PF in power after concessions with the colonizer at the time. So Mqabuko sezithola sengu-president kodwa akathembi ukuthi abantu laba ababusayo are going to respect and honor him. That's why then he concocts a lot of charges against the Zebra commanders. And by the way, you'll discover that people like Dumiso Dabengo had refused to be in the army because they were now meant to salute their subordinates. And so he didn't trust ukuthi abantu laba bazayekele kuba ku army bayehlala ngikhaya. And at the time there's also people that had been demobilized. So he knew ukuthi into le uyijontshela abantu le. So that he can consolidate power, he found it necessary to kill people. That's how we had Gukurahundi waqala umgaba ukubulala abantu. And by the way, Zapu had considered, even though we had grievances against how the 1980 elections were run, we said we did not go to war so that the Zapu can be in power. We went to war for black majority rule. As long as the black man is in charge and is in power, we had hoped that Zanu was going to be civil. But Mugabe kazange abe civil, kazange abe civilized. Kazange athanda ukubusa ndawonye le Zapu. So waseqala a push for a one-party state. So nxa ebulala abantu nje, number one, ubulala and threatening abantu that were Zapu and Zebra. to break their spine so that bangamvukeli. So he concocts a lot of charges against them, like the famous treason trial. Lieutenant General Khalisa Bantu Vumindaba Masuku, Lookout Masuku, lo Babu Dabengo, concocted crimes. Uguti dicaleli ngekho vele. They go to court and the courts discover that akula calala. But guess what? For 4 years they were sent to come into Chikurupi, bengela cala. So during that period, Mugabe is killing people. He started off by killing the leadership and the command element of Zapu and Zebra. But he discovered ukuthi Abantu, they are still behind their leaders, because if you get to 1985, at the height of Gukurahundi, Abantu still voted for their Zapu. And he then turns around and intensifies. Ukubulala abantu was killing unarmed civilians so that he can force them to support him. Zanu PF has always been a part of violence. They have a history and a track record of killing each other even during the war. So after independence, Usebula La Bantu. Then Joshua Nkomo is given a condition. If you want the killing to stop, join Zapu. So Joshua Nkomo is one magnanimous leader who did not want to spill the blood of a black man. You'll discover that Zanu PF has spilled more blood of black people than they did of white people during the war.
But people Mbambo Mlomo then at a later stage sizobantu bekhala ngokuthi Nkomo let that happen, ukuthi kugcine sekule take over where Zapu now is set aside. How do you guys take that when the general public is saying Nkomo failed us?
Uyabona abantu asibasoli yiko ngabi lokuqedisisa yingabi lolwazi. Remember, when you are fighting a war, awuli uwedwa ulabantu that are going to support you, and you realize that at the time we were supported by the frontline states. And so before we went to Lancaster, there were many other negotiations, or Geneva, Malta, and stuff like that. So when we then go to Lancaster, Nkomo, for me, I feel he was ambushed in that he's given an ultimatum. The ultimatum is that go to independence, go to elections, or else we will not support the war effort. So Nkomo finds himself surrounded by people that want him to get a lasting solution. So even if he had opted to refuse and resist, there's absolutely no way he would have continued to get support from the frontline states. Yeah. And looking at the geopolitics at the time, Russia also was, the USSR at the time, had problems of their own. So Nkomo, there was no way that I'm going to go to war. He needed bases in Botswana, he needed bases in Zambia, he needed bases in Tanzania. And these people had said, if there's no agreement, you then need to find another country where you're going to set up your bases. And also look at the time, the apartheid government in South Africa as well. So Nkomo was surrounded by a lot of pressure. There's absolutely no way where Nkomo would have prevailed against the geopolitics that were prevalent at the time. So even during Gukurahundi, we have people say that Nkomo should have said, let's go ahead and fight. But at the time, when we went into independence and accepted and considered that we have been defeated, an army in an independent state. The army now belongs to the state. So anyone who then keeps an army is a terrorist. That's why Nkomo then, to show goodwill that it does not have any interest, Zanu PF, he had to make sure that it disarms Zapu, so that Mugabe does not use that as an excuse. Okay, you are not disarming people, and then it becomes a war. But by disarming his Zebra, it exposes Mugabe to be the charlatan that he was, somebody who calls for unarmed people and kills all of them. So abantu Nkomo wathengisa, ngabantu abangelalwazi. Nkomo had no option. But over and above that, Nkomo had believed that abantu singabantwana benhlabathi banabevu were equal. Nkomo never practiced and exercised tribal politics, which was practiced by Zanu PF. Which is why even if, let's just say, if he had the means of fighting back, he was going to be fighting back Abantwana be Zimbabwe. He was going to be killing Abantwana be Zimbabwe. He opted for peace so that we save the lives of Zimbabweans. regardless of who they are, whether they were Zanu or Zanla, whether they were Tonga, Kalanga, Shona, black or white. Nkomo thought the lasting solution is to make sure that we stop the war, we have no peace. That is why he capitulated and said, let's go into unity. Yeah.
This is where the Unity Accord came by.
Yes, the Unity Accord was not an agreement that was gotten into willingly. Remember that when we go into unity, most of Joshua Nkomo's commanders are in prison. Some are killed. When we had Unity Accord, Lookout Masuku was dead. Tumiso Tabenga was in prison. He was actually released as one of the conditions of the setting up of the government after Unity Accord. Sidi Malunga had been in prison. Chinintuta had been killed. And many other leaders had been killed or had been imprisoned. So Nkomo goes into the unity talks weekend. Most of his lieutenants are either in jail, in exile, or dead. His supporters are being killed on a daily basis by the 5th Brigade, an army that was trained specifically to kill supporters of Zapu, primarily and secondarily to kill Ndebele-speaking people. So Nkomo is surrounded. He absolutely has no choice. He at some point was also in exile in London. So you can tell that his frog march, he has to choose between a protracted struggle of black versus black, or to try and find a lasting solution that will bring peace. That is why he chose to go into unity. So we never went into unity because we wanted. We were forced. We were frog marched. We were frog marched via the barrel of the gun, just to save the lives of people. And it was actually a good decision, because had that war prolonged, a lot of lives would have been lost. Maybe some of us would not have been born or would not have lived to see this day. So Abadala, they sacrificed themselves so that my generation can come in and take the struggle for full democratization and liberalization of Zimbabwe further. So we are here as a result of Ukutuba Nkomo chose peace
over violence.
Basically, Umka was prepared to kill all of us.
How does then Zapu at a later stage get like reborn, like revived? Because at that point, Masculatina, we hear of Zapu, but it's more like swallowed, and it's sort of like a shadow of the ruling government at the time. And we now see, we hear, or we are seeing Zapu campaigning. We see the current president, Sibangilizwe, Nkomo. Izalwa nini gagucha Zapu?
Yeah, what you need to realize, Masisiago Unity, we had a congress where we made a resolution, Yoguti, Sesiago Unity. And the reason why we went to unity is because besifuna ukuthi abantu bangafi besisiyacatsha sicatshe lokufa. But it was clear that one day we were going to come out. That's why Nkomo was saying to people, ngena nini liphumele ngeladaka, because he knew one day sizaphuma. Kodwa lapho singena khona singene emanzini alenhlabathi singaphuma sesingcolile, because he understood the people that we were going into unity with. These were chacharak people. These are dishonest people. Because remember, we didn't start working with the Zanu PF or Zanu guys at UNIT. They were in Zapu. They concocted a lot of stories against Joshua Nkomo that is not willing to go into an armed struggle. But Bachonjalo, when Nkomo just started taking people for training for an armed struggle, but they concocted these things by Puma. They were being dishonest. Puma was Zanu from Zapu was dishonest. It was motivated by tribalism. So this is who they are. And then even Sebe Pumile, we tried to work with them under Zipper. We said, okay, it's Sokule Zanla, Sokule Zipper. I guess because we're fighting for the same thing. I guess it's Amen, Mato, to Slade Pansi, Skulumisane Nini, and fight the enemy from the same front. But when we did that, Abantu bezanla baqala ukubulala amazipra. We have Mokagao, for instance. A lot of our people were killed. So we know these people are dishonest. When in 1980 we were going to Lancaster, by the way, people must know what when we were going to Lancaster, most of Zanu PF leadership was in prison for killing each other. They were in prison for murder, babebulalana, and dungeon. Kenneth counted and imprisoned them. But Nkomo refused to go and negotiate for Zimbabwe bengeko. He calls them, he calls that they calls for their release, and they release for the talks. And then there is an agreement that if we're going to go into elections, let's go as one party. as the Patriotic Front. And that's agreed. Uskhanzo will tell you that the following day when they were meant to go and have a meeting, he went into the hotels or the rooms where Zanu guys were staying. What like a piece of paper, they'd already gone to Zimbabwe to start campaigning for elections. They did not want to meet Zapu. So Zapu is thinking we're going to go there as a Patriotic Front. That's why we registered our candidates late, because we discovered that Zanu is going in on their own. So now ngamatsotsi uyabona udila labo thubayi yazi udila le 419 udila lezigangi izikeyiwe.
Yeah.
So abantu vele baphila ngobutsotsi. So we went in because we were being killed by otsotsi laba, but we knew ukuthi thina sobotsotsi at some point we will need to leave. So 2009 we had a congress, but there were a lot of other talks that preceded the congress. We went into congress and made a resolution that we are now forming, rather than forming, we are now getting out of Zanu PF, who are reviving the Zapu structures. This is how we did.
How did they receive that? How did they react to that?
We are gonna Zanu PF even today still behaves like umuntu who doesn't want to accept divorce. Umuntu ongavuma ukwaliwa. That is why there is still people in Zanu that want to identify themselves as Zapu. But the moment we pulled out of Zanu PF, those that remained in Zanu are former Zapu. They cannot be Zapu.
Yeah.
They are now former Zapu.
Yeah.
They are now fully fledged members of Zanu.
Yeah.
And you must understand that some of these people were junior when we got into unity in 1987. Some had joined Zapu in 1975, 73. So they'd only been Zapu members for 9-10 years. But they stayed in Zanu for 22 years. Bafundi imkhuba emibi, imkhuba yobusela, imkhuba yokubulalana, imkhuba yokutshontsha ama-elections and things like that. And selfishness. So when we pull out, umuntu sejayele ukutshontsha, awusesiyabheka ngikhaya kungatshontshwa khona. They would rather come up with an excuse to say, no, Tina, we are still Zapu, but in Zanu. But there is no one who is senior or salayo. When we pulled out, the most senior people pulled out. Your Tumiso Dabenga pulled out. Your Tenjwe pulled out. Uromanyati, one of the first people to be in the high command, who had actually never been in Zanu people, because there's people that said we're not going to go into unity. It's just channel politics. Are people that are not in Zanu. People that were senior negotiators at Lancaster. I think now Soksele, Jeremy Brickhill. No, not Jeremy Brickhill. I forgot his name, but I'll remember. The negotiators, Oromanyati, they are not in Zanu. Lapana Sukasala Njos Patas Kwama, the PAs, the chaperones, and the political wannabes. People that then became senior because others died. But the real people that were in the forefront are not in Zanu. Labana Basala, even those that are old, like Empress Mtiniri, Nabonabas Dingeli is Chwala. Nabona that are protecting their interests. Kumele konoko. Ukutabantu baya panduga, abantu baya chinja. Or Petimpof, Panduga, Labo Kalistas, before there was Unity Accord. So we can So abantu baya dinga madlelo. And this Zanu PF seems to be a very good lelo for Amasela. And everyone who's, I mean, look at the kind of people that are in Zanu PF leadership. Most of them are accused of one thing or another. So that's a gathering of criminals and crooks. So even us as Zapu, those that are in Zanu, we view them the same.
You speak so passionately about all that has happened, and is this what made you join politics?
I found myself in politics maybe by default and not by design. I'd never imagined myself being a politician or being an SG of Zapu. I've always, however, been an advocate for justice. But when you look at my life, you could tell that maybe God had ordered it that way. Because one of the first people that I worked with was Kain Sondlov, who was in Zanu, by the way. And through him, I got to interact with a lot of Zapu, Zebra people, and this is before Zapu pulled out. I then began to understand our history as Zapu. I understood how Zanu PF destroyed our archives and destroyed even the iconography of, and then the icons of Zapu and Zebra. And I also come from a family where we are politically conscious. We brush shoulders with a lot of Zapu and Zipra cadres.
Yeah.
But I then had a closer relationship with police when I worked with our former president, Udumiso Tabonga. You would know I set up his foundation. I started from scratch, and on a daily basis, I was with him, interacting with him about one thing or the other. So I got to be mentored or schooled or exposed to politics.
Yeah.
I mean, during the coup, where President Tabonga was heavily involved, I was with him. So I got a bit of exposure into statecraft and boardroom politics and things like that. So when, and then, I mean, it is in 2017 where he then said to me, I know you're working in the NGO space where you're not supposed to be partisan. Don't you think it would be good for you even to sit at the back and be
a spectator or
learning, but make sure that you are a Zapu member? So I did that, and I found myself running his foundation, which really has a lot of political undertones. And then he passed on. When he passed on, I was asked to speak at his funeral, and I spoke from the heart. It is where I had a rude awakening that the system of Zanu PF is vindictive. Because of some of the signs that I had seen in the past, there's a lot of things that I got exposed to. Vindictive in that I spoke from my heart, but I found myself being pursued by state agents.
Is this when you escaped and you went into exile?
I went into, this is the first time I went into exile. I came to South Africa, I was compromised here. I then went to another country and in another country because I'd been compromised. But then at some point, I went back to Zimbabwe. And at the height of Gukurahundi, not Gukurahundi, of COVID again, I found myself in the middle of the night, Mnangagwa was sending a team that was called the Ferret Team, coming to try and abduct me with strict instructions to, if they found me, my body is needed, dead or alive. That's how I eventually escaped the country over my work as an activist. So I then thought to myself, let me find myself in playing an active political role. Let me find myself a political role, because activism, particularly if you are from Matebeleland, I mean, people don't value. And this is the legacy of Robert Mugabe. This is the legacy of the misgovernance by Zanu, where everything Harare is better, where everyone from the north is viewed as a better leader or is doing something productive. I mean, Elton Mangoma ran a political party, no one ever said it's regional or tribal. Tendai Biti ran a political party, no one ever said it's regional or tribal. Joyce Mjuru ran a political party, no one said is regional or tribal. Welshman Muga runs a political party, it's a regional tribal party. But this same party is inherited from Atham Tambara. No one ever said it's tribal or regional when Atham Tambara was running it. So there is a push to domesticate leaders that are from Matebeleland, and this is by default by the current generation, and it's by design by Zanu PF that pulled out of Zapu in 1963 to try and make sure that if you are Ndebele, you are viewed as a tribal warlord, a tribal chief. You are not a nationalist. So when I saw those things, I thought to myself, let me then get actively involved in politics. And because I was already a card-carrying member of Zapu, it was easier for me to join Zapu. Though I could have joined another other party, but the party that I felt resonated with me in terms of its rich history, legacy, and this promise to the people of Zimbabwe, it was Zapu. So that's how I found myself in Zapu. I mean, I was asked by a lot of people to come and take over the work that was being done. Initially being asked maybe to play a very significant role. And when we went to Congress, I was then given a mandate to be Secretary General. So that's how I found myself in Zapu.
As people of Matebeleland, Midlands, and any other places that feel or are deemed as marginalized, do you think we're still marginalized?
You see, the issue of marginalization is not a thought. It's not a feeling. It is a reality that a child born in Nkai, child born in Cholocho, in Gwanda, Skotini, wherever, in Matebeleland, Midlands, Lobela, is a reality that we live. Having a Ndebele surname in the current calibration of the country, marginalization is a reality. If you listen to the stories of the ordinary people of Matabeleland and the Midlands, it is the reality that we face. Regardless of how you want to look at it, I know people would want us to and pretend and be modest because we want to be accepted as national leaders. But unfortunately, that doesn't fly with us. As Zapu, we fully push for devolution because we believe in the right to self-determination and promotion of cultures and our diversity within the context of a unified state. A unitary state must not be the victimization of the minority by the majority. But ungakhangela khathesi, go to universities, and you must understand that all this has got its roots in Gukurahundi. When other regions were progressing after independence, the first 10 years of Matabeleland was being destroyed. First 10 years of independence, Matabeleland was being destroyed. Teachers were being killed, headmasters were being killed, nurses were being killed, soldiers were being killed, the entire civil service was being killed. So the marginalization of the people of Matabeleland can be given different contexts. Some can say abantu abafundanga, but babezafunda sikhathi bani bebulawa. Our people were continually on flight mode. Our people were leaving for Botswana, they were leaving for South Africa, they were leaving for every other country because they were being killed, being hunted down by government that's meant to protect them. But also, there's been a deliberate a program of action by government to make sure that there is no services in Matabeleland. I mean, look at NAST, for instance. I got paid. How many years has NAST been there? Look at roads, Victoria Falls Road, look at Nkai Road, look at
Bedbridge Kwanda.
You can tell that there is even roads that lead to some of the best mines in Matabeleland. You can tell that there is a deliberate ploy and plot by government to marginalize Matabeleland. But when this thing started, Mugabe was punishing people, even including Gukurahundi, for voting Zapu as punishment. But this thing has become police. Instead of as a punishment to say, let's force them to join Zanu PF. But successor governments and administrations at whatever level. I mean, to the extent you could food aid in Matabeleland is not distributed equitably and fairly, which is why everything ends why Zanu. That's how Zanu PF is. They reward people for chanting slogans and gyrating and twerking. They reward you. But if you tell them the truth, if you oppose them, if you have alternate views, they don't support you. The water crisis in Matabeleland, for me, should have been solved a long time ago. But because Matabeleland has always been clear from day one, we do not support Zanu PF for who they are. The only region that has resisted Zanu PF consistently is Matabeleland. That is why Bulawayo, ever since the formation of opposition from 1999, when MDC was formed, in Bulawayo you will never have a Zanu MP unless it's a by-election. If it's not a by-election, then it is only in 2018 where they to field double candidates and Modi became an MP. Fair and square, they know. So we are being punished. I mean, if you are going to punish a generation, make sure that, one, you don't give them opportunities. Go to the presidential scholarship. Look at the list of the people that are being given presidential scholarships. They'll tell you, no, they don't apply. It's simply because they've been applying for a long time and nothing is happening. I mean, you look at the nursing platforms. I mean, we have good companies like Upajila. They started a program of making sure that they're helping people. Helping people to apply to nursing schools. But you were told that the algorithm is so complicated. They were still not being prioritized. You can tell that the government of Zimbabwe is hegemonic. There is a supremacist kind of politics, and our people are being used as pawns in the grand scheme. We have representatives that andebele or that are Tonga Kalanga in Matabeleland, but they don't represent our people to Zanu PF. They represent Zanu PF to the people of Matabeleland, and that's a big difference. They have no voice.
So there's
no say.
imbalance.
There's nothing that they're pushing. There's nothing that they're making better, because the politics of Zanu PF is anti-Matabeleland. And that people must know that. And when we are in opposition, we expect to see a difference of politics. We do not expect to see politics of hegemony. When you see groups like MRP rising up, they might be going about it, pushing for secession. And doesn't mean that they are wrong or right. It means they have legitimate concerns. If you engage a lot of our people from Matebeleland to say, do they feel they are Zimbabwean? Very few people will tell you they are Zimbabweans, which is why as Zapu we feel that let's try and have a system of devolution where people will feel like they belong because they're in charge of their localities, where they are in charge of their resources, where they are in charge of the areas where they stay. You really look at the employment demographs in Matebeleland. It's shocking. Even for the simplest jobs, to find locals there. We can say we're being tribal, but that's not being tribal, it's being real. They'll tell you that Bulawayo is a cosmopolitan province, so you find everybody. But Harare is cosmopolitan. Why sing at Tulaman Debele? There are cleaners and stuff like that.
And Debele is scared to go into those spaces and also take part or fill those spaces or those positions, because someone can come and say, we are open also to allow Ndebeles to come in.
Saying something and really doing it is different. Yabona, you can't say our people buy a server, but abantu bakithi babaleke Zimbabwe babuye South Africa. Bezogijinzwa much kusabochwana bezobaleka, they are being called amakwere. Even up to now they are being called amakwere, and now there's about 4,000 people trapped underground in a mine. I can bet my last dollar about 500 of those people could be Zimbabweans. So Abantu, they cannot be more scared of their government and opt to go to where they are not known and
being victimized.
Or babuzwa passport, bayathethiswa. There's victims of xenophobia and stuff like that. Our people opted to leave. One, because they were killed, they were victimized. Even if you go in there, you'll be victimized. Listen to the stories of Zapu and Zipra people that were in the army. Abanye abazange bapromote, umuntu wasebenza 15 years was never promoted. 20 years in the army, never promoted. You go to schools, you go to every other place. Abantu, they're being victimized from being developed. There is a systemic stance in most of these things that are controlled by the state, to portray Ndebele as people, or not Ndebele, as people from Matebele, as people that cannot lead, that have no skill, that are incompetent. That narrative has been run so well that even if you find a competent Ndebele in a place, they're never promoted.
Always second in charge.
Yeah, we are deputies. And that's where we have a problem. I don't understand why we have our educated people and stuff like that, but they're always overlooked for appointment. Every time you see Ndebele being appointed, it's for cosmetics and aesthetics, and not necessarily that they are promoted there because they are capable. It's rare to find that. So Abantu Bagiti, they are learning. Abantwana, they are learning. They are seeing, okay, it's better for me to grow up and leave the country because there's no opportunities for me here. And these are things that, as political players, especially in the opposition, these are discussions that we must have. I remember one time, I think, leading into the Constitution of 2018, there were discussions around an equalization fund because Matebele has been more marginalized. We had people in the opposition rank that believed that Matebele is not marginalized. I want you to realize that there are places that are underdeveloped in Mashonaland and places that are underdeveloped in Matebeleland, but the reasons are different. In Mashonaland is simply because of bad governance. In Matebeleland is because of marginalization. So you cannot argue and say to me, "Agula Mqabuko Nkomo, similar agula Mqabuko in some place in Mashonaland." Ngali mali bikhona bayidlile, it's incompetence and neglect. Ngabe biveli ngekho ayizange yafakwa. Because we want to oppress these people. Look at the farms that were taken during the land grab.
Before you go ahead, we've got a finance minister who is Ndebele. When allocating funds, is he not allocating funds equally to all the provinces and government departments? And how do we prove that in Mashonaland the funds are allocated, but Ziyadliwa, and in Matebeleland the funds are not allocated at all?
I'll give you simple examples. Recently, Zinara gave money to local authorities for rehabilitation of roads. The mayor cried foul to say how Tina we were given a shorty job. I mean, the money that we're given is not fair. And the bulk of the money goes to develop other regions. So the fact that, you see, marginalization in Zanu PF is a policy, it's not an issue of tribesmen. So even if you are in Ndebele and you are in Zanu PF, you are going to be used as an instrument of marginalization, because marginalization is a policy. You are there to pacify your people, to say, okay, at least we have a position. But in terms of what we get out of it, there is nothing. And that is what must be known, which is why we always invite people to join Zapu, because in Zapu, we don't have tribalism. We don't look at people based on where they come from. We look at people on merit. That's why we push for devolution, so that locals can benefit from the resources that are available within their spaces. So this is who we are. In Zanu PF is the other. There can be arguments. We can argue and say how our funds disperse and stuff like that. It has never been fair. Look at simple things like distribution of ukudla when there is a drought. Most of Matabeleland families are not fed. In any case, Matabeleland has always been drought prone from Gudala Valley. But it only becomes a crisis when there is a national drought. So the way people are being treated in Matabeleland is not all about money. Look at even when our icons die, how they are treated. Recently, Partizanyati died. Seasoned historian, he's given state-assisted funeral. Some chap who was singing music, singing Zim dancehall here, died, was given liberation hero status. Makura Charumbira, which just put Mqabuko, White City dies, is given hero status. So these are the things that people must be clear about, that we were second-class citizens in Rhodesia because we were black. We are second-class citizens in Zimbabwe because we are from Matabeleland. And people must accept that. We must deal with it. We must singayicwicwiza into yakhona, singayifihli, singayingingizi, singayingunguni. Awube into esikhulumayo ukuthi abantu beMatabeleland abatrithwa kuhle.
How does Zapu plan to deal with that? What is the plan?
The first plan is to make sure that Zanu PF is out of power. Because as Zapu, we are not looking at reforming Zanu. Laba kabachinji, izigebenga, abanjalo is in their DNA. The first step is to make sure that Zanu is out of power. But if that fails, what we are pushing for is devolution. Not this watered down devolution, there's still not devolution, that still must be implemented via devolution. Devolution is the only way to go, where we have a fiscal devolution. Fiscal devolution means that imales is razor in a place, we retain some of the money and we to develop ourselves, we remit to national treasury part of the money. The opportunities that are there primarily benefit the people that are there. There's absolutely no reason why you can tell me, okay, because there's a mine here, it's a national cake, and the national cake benefits people from, say, from Manicaland ahead of the people from Matabeleland. It doesn't work like that. And by the way, we have a Hararized nation. The people of Manicaland also actually had their diamonds. Go to Manicaland, you can't tell that it's a province with diamonds. So devolution is not a tribal thing to benefit Matabeleland. It's something that has to benefit the entire region, so that we have equitable distribution of resources. The people of Manicaland need devolution maybe as much as us, or more than us. But also devolution is an instrument and a tool by which we can develop the country. Let's just say we build 1,000 schools. Rather, we have a target to build 1,000 schools in the country. If we happen to build 700 or 900 schools, we have met our target, regardless of how well spread they are. So, we have disenfranchised people of Mashonaland, or we built 900 Mashonaland. It means we have disenfranchised people from Matabeleland. So, devolution gives us a platform and a mechanism by which we can have equal and equitable distribution of resources. Once we have a centralized government, you at times are having people making decisions when they're out of touch with the lived realities of the people. Umuntu has a decision about the distribution of funds to rehabilitate roads. Umuntu ose Harare has never gone to Nkai. Akakubona ukuqakatheka le agency ufaka umgwaqo eNkai. Umuntu was meant to dualize Bulawayo Bridge. Umuntu ngibo vele ongakaza eGoli.
We are fly amayamba.
Tina, the bulk of our relatives was South Africa. Yiba bafayo emgwaqweni. Yena nxa abantu besifa kakuheli we because asobantu bakibo. That's why even if people die, it's not even declared a national disaster. Akubahlupi. They are not in touch with the lived realities of the people. But when you have devolution, that means the person who's making decisions
is in that space.
Uyabona into abantu abakhala ngayo. I mean, khathesi safelwa ngabantu bethu abensimbizejwana ku Victoria Falls Road. Akubakhathazi because bona nxa besiye Falls bayafly, they're going there for retreats, they're going there for what have you, bahlale emotweni bamnandi, they're okay. They never use that road. Right? So these are the people that are making decisions for us.
Yeah.
But with devolution, it means that the local authorities, the local people are able to sit down as a people and say, this is what we want. When now we have to go through some structures, bureaucratic structures that are centered in Harare. And after that, so many people political Zanu, because if you look at the resolutions, Zanu from their last conference, one of the things that they want, they're saying they want to strengthen the principle that the party is superior to government, is superior to the country. The most important organ in Zimbabwe, according to Zanu PF, is their Politburo. A Politburo of tribalists, a Politburo of corrupt people, a Politburo of looters and killers. This is their most important organ. An organ where very few people there are competent to run a government. Because had they been competent, Zimbabwe would not be where it is. We are where we are because we have a country that is run by incompetent people.
In terms of capacity, numbers, strength, where is Zapu currently? Is Zapu ready to govern? Is Zapu ready to take over? Do people have confidence in Zapu?
You see, the first thing that we must realize, Zapu does not want to be in power for Zapu. Zapu wants to take over power so that the people of Zimbabwe can have a foundation where they can express themselves on merit. So in the event that Zapu does not have the skill sets or all the necessary skill sets, because I believe we have some sort of skill sets to run a government, but in the event that we do not have all the required and mandatory skills to run a government, Zapu is willing to work with all the other Zimbabweans, which is why we have always supported coalitions, alliances and stuff like that, because we understand our strengths and our weaknesses. We work with everyone. We have never been selfish. That is why even when we came back from the war, we had a government in waiting. When we came here, when we came to Zimbabwe, we had a fully fledged government, right? But we offered our services and Mugabe dismissed us. We didn't fight and say, okay, and force ourselves. But in terms of where we are in the political climate and context of Zimbabwe, you realize that I think we stayed too long in Zanu, and a lot of other political parties came into play, and most of our supporters and members. That is why you see that the opposition has got the strongest support. I mean, you look at your MTC and stuff like that, their strongest support has always been where there was a stronghold. Zapu, number one. Number two, we still have people that are skeptical about Zapu. They feel maybe Zanu, and Zanu is running a narrative. You could know Zapu is in Zanu, just to confuse the masses. So we have started a process, I mean, of rebuilding the party, and you must understand Lapes Vela Corner. When President Dabengwa took Zapu out of Zanu, his mandate was to make sure that the pullout is authentic and is acceptable, right? And he successfully did that. I mean, those that would argue, I mean, some took us to court to say, no, we're still in Zanu. They lost the court case. Now, if you look at now, very few people will say we are Zanu and genuinely believe it. They can't believe it. Now, after the demise of the Comrade Dabengo and the change of administration, the Sibangilizwe Nkomo administration has a duty to go to the people, to go to the masses. This is why you find that we have been doing what is called direct constituency penetration, where President Nkomo goes down to the people to explain to them, this is who we are. And rarely do you find people say, oh, but you are in Zanu, because President Dabengwa dealt with that, that we are not in Zanu. Now we are now building a formidable opposition that is in touch with the lived realities of the people. That's why you find us, we are where the people are. And it paid dividends. I mean, for the first time, Zapu won a council seat. It shows that there's progress. If you look at the number of people that are voting Zapu, you see that there's a progression. So this is where we're going. And for now, we might not be the alternative opposition in terms of numbers or the best opposition. But from our numbers, we are the third biggest opposition party in the country.
Are people on the ground, do they have confidence in Sibangilizwe Nkomo?
Unfortunately, in Zapu, we do not view the party from the lessons of a strong man, because we are not building a personality cult. We are building an institution. Remove Dabengwa. President Mabuga takes over. Zapu stood. We go to Congress. Sibangilizwe Nkomo takes over. Zapu is standing. Remove Nkomo today. John takes over. Zapu will stand. Remove John. Put Peter. Zapu will stand. So in Zapu, we are not running a narrative of being confident in a person or a personality. We have always been known for building strong institutions. So the confidence that people have is not tied to an individual. It is confidence that is tied to a party. There is no one in Zapu who feels Zapu is where it is because of me. You are where you are because of Zapu, and because the people believe in Zapu and not necessarily in you. So whether or not people believe in Sibangilizwe Nkomo, it is neither here nor there.
If Zapu managed to get back the properties from the current government, we've heard stories with Tugunama properties that were taken back in the day, and there's been a process of trying to get those back.
The issue of properties is very complex, but Zanu has not given us back our properties for a number of reasons. If we got all our properties today, in the next elections we'll be in government, because we'll automatically be the richest political party, not only in Zimbabwe, maybe in Africa as a whole. Our assets by now, their cumulative value is worth billions of pounds. With properties, farms, and a lot of animals in those farms, houses, commercial stands, and stuff like that. Magnet House in Bulawa is a Zapu property. Vanguard House in Harare is a Zapu property. A lot of our properties are in the hands of Zanu, and Zanu will not give them to us because it gives us political advantage. The reason why they were taken was to emasculate Zapu. We were tenor. So giving us back the properties means that they are letting us loose. And I'm telling you, give us our properties today, in 2028 we're in government, because politics now is about resources. So Umnangagwa would not make that. He can make promises and say, I'm going to give you, I'm going to give you. But that doesn't mean as a party we're not fighting to get back our properties. We are doing everything reasonably possible to get our properties. Maybe as a last resort, we're going to occupy them forcefully, because they are ours for starters, and we should benefit. And by the way, you realize that when we had the Unity Accord never included two things. It never said any. It is silent about Zipra, silent about our properties, and that on its own is telling. But now the folks and chaps in Zanu are now saying, okay, because you went into a Unity Accord, it means the properties are automatically,
they belong to the state.
They belong to to Zanu,
not to the state.
Primarily they said the state. Now they're saying no, maybe Aseko Zanu because you became one party. But they don't understand that those properties were, in as much as they belong to the party, there were companies that were formed for the party with non-directors. So the properties are a separate issue to the politics. And you remember that over and above the properties that were taken that belong to the party and the companies owned by the party, certain individuals lost their properties when Zapu Properties were lost. By Zanu, simply because Zanu wanted to make sure that those that went to war, abalamandla to fight back or to be sustainable, but depend on Zanu. That's why Zanu create a problem. So say supporting that's how Zanu runs. They create a problem, then they want to turn around and be saviors. So that's the challenge that we have. But as Zapu, we are prepared, particularly the younger generation of Zapu. We are not in the mold of our fathers, who, by the way, did a very good job in fighting for the country. But remember, when they went into 1987, they'd been war for a while, and they were now being hunted down by their own brothers that they went to war with. So they had to make concessions
and choose peace.
Yeah, and choose peace. Zanu is dealing with a different breed of people. Zanu is dealing with us, who are in the mold of our fathers when they went to war, not when they came back from war tired. We are rebranding the party. We are ready to do whatever it takes to get back our Zebra records and documents, to get back our properties, and to sanitize the iconography of the people of Zapu. This thing of saying Nkomo is a sellout, Zapu didn't go into war and stuff like that. We are going to clean the names of our fathers. We are going to make sure that the narrative of the country is told. But above all, we are going to make sure that the Gukurahundi that we fought for, the Zimbabwe that flows with milk and honey that we fought for, comes back and becomes a reality. This is who we are. We are in a different revolution, which does not necessarily need guns at the moment. We're in a revolution that needs people to be able to articulate policies and to be able to make the common man on the ground envision a better Zimbabwe. The unfortunate thing is that my generation sees the current Zimbabwe as normal. Zimbabwe gets by normal. Zimbabwe, you get an education and not get a job, they see it as normal. We must, and we have a responsibility to make sure that we are able to articulate the proper Zimbabwe, how a proper country must run. A country where people have social security nets. Umuntu uyasebenza 20 years ayihola imali which is less than $150. Abantu worked for years. Umuntu nxa esuka ekhaya ekati bus imali azoyithatha koBulawayo is less than what they used to come to Bulawayo to get the money. These are things that as Zapu we need to correct. Zapu brings back hope to say when we went to war, this is the Zimbabwe that we went for. We have a responsibility to reverse the bastardization of the legacy of liberation struggle. Now if you talk about liberation, because to them the liberator is a selfish Zanu guy who says I must be in power in perpetuity because I fought for you. But Zapu doesn't believe in that. Our fathers sacrificed their today so that we can have a better tomorrow, not so that they can come and oppress us again tomorrow. I always say to people, they steal everything. Like now, when competition about Zanu over girlfriends, look at all of them. Omo Hart is fired from being a vice president. Look at Tuchiwenga is our age mate. Okay, Matem. Baba, abafuna ukubona vele siba le peace. Abafuna ukubona sisi happy. Yonke into nje that could benefit us. Bathatha. And as a generation, we are not angry enough.
Botswana has a new leader. 58 years of rule by the Liberation Party. And we see now the new leader coming in and giving hope to some of the opposition parties, especially the new parties in Africa. What's your take on that, Zapu?
By the way, we attended the inauguration of the new president in Botswana. I was there. We have some sort of a relationship with the leadership in Botswana.
Yeah.
We have been studying how they did it. One of the key things that you realize is that they didn't go it alone. The umbrella for democracy, you see that is there, is a grouping of like-minded political parties. One of the things that will help us in Zimbabwe is to make sure that no one owns the narrative of a better Zimbabwe. no one owns the right and mandate to free our people. See, the problem that we have now, people are not necessarily looking for salvation. They're looking for a savior. So as long as you do not come in the mold of the savior that they want, they might not listen to you. So it is incumbent upon those that claim to have numbers to rally support, to not use their numbers to consolidate their positions as opposition. They must use their numbers to attract everybody so that we are able to together become midwives of a better Zimbabwe. What has been killing us is that we have people that feel they are entitled to govern. If you want to be an alternative, you must work with them, listen to them, join them, support them. That does not work. With great power, which comes from the masses, comes great responsibility to deliver for the masses and to the masses. We need an opposition leadership that is magnanimous and is willing to put aside egos for the betterment of Zimbabwe. This thing of saying so and so has no numbers, so and so has no support and stuff like that. I mean, if there's any one person with all the support that is required to win an election, whether it's in the deep state or in the masses, because we know that in Zimbabwe having the masses is not good enough. You can have the masses and still find yourself sitting in the opposition benches. So we need to come together collectively and say to ourselves, how do we go about it? And we must shift our focus from opposition strongholds. Bulawayo, for instance, whether you campaign or not, the people of Bulawayo, Harare, and stuff like that, they will not necessarily vote for Zanu PF. It is high time we as opposition collectively develop strategies of going to Zanu PF strongholds and being able to campaign, build solid structures there so that we can Zanu PF and collectively find ourselves forming the government. Lay uthi khona abantu bazenzela bodwa does not work. If you check in countries where liberation movements have lost, you discover that it was via a coalition or an alliance of some sort. And this is the model that we must start looking into. This thing of saying let's build as individuals, for me, based on the experiences in Botswana and recently Mauritius, the change in government, they were the ruling party got 0 seats in Mauritius, 4 I think or 5 in Botswana out of 61. The model that has been working is people working together to achieve a common goal. Let's move away from wanting to be number one. Let's do things for the people of Zimbabwe, because if we all trust and want to be number one, our independence and freedom might not come. So my encouragement to opposition leaders, my encouragement to anyone who dares to want to see a better Zimbabwe is to let's start a message of uniting the people that want freedom. There is actually more that unites us than that divides us. We need to find a way of swallowing our egos and our pride and be able to work together to deal with the enemy called Zanu PF. Our people have suffered. The state of hospitals is unpalatable. Abantu abafa ezibhedlela, I mean, babula izinto under normal circumstances ongamelanga zibabulale. Ukulimala kwa-accident umele le-ambulance ukuthi indlu yakho iyiche kulo muntu phakathi fire brigade ibingela amanzi. Simple things that in a normal country should not be killing people are killing people in Zimbabwe. And if we have a leadership elonembeza, if we have a leadership that has a conscience, the situation in Zimbabwe should not be allowed to continue another day. What we are seeing in Zimbabwe is unfair. Into enzakala Zimbabwe buhlungu. We must not allow it to continue. But Zanu PF comes for us one-on-one. We must find a way of coming together. Abantu bayabotshwa for speaking out in Zimbabwe. We had Job Zikala abotshwa for over 2 years. We had the MRP 9, I think level for almost 2 years, if not more. And abantu, life continued normally. But we must come together. If they come for you, joy. Sonke. Kumbengi Zapu, MRP, MDC Alliance, CCC, Blue, Green, whatever name, as long as we feel that what has happened is wrong, we should make sure that we support you so that the state knows that the cost of arbitrary arrest is too much to pay. Uskala, had we flooded the courts had we protested collectively, would not have been where he is. When elections were stolen, had we had a joint response, we would not be where we were. But in King's life, silabanye bakithi that are in opposition, that are seeing an opportunity to kapula from the situation.
Skapule tonga.
So that's where we have a problem. But I pray that God one day will raise an opposition leadership in Zimbabwe that has got his people, the people of God, at heart. Sifuna abantu abalenhliziyo nembeza for the people, not for themselves. People that want to change Zanu PF, not because they want to replace it with themselves and continue with the Zanu PF system. But people that are saying we need to change this thing
for the people
because it's not working for people. We want something that works for people. And people that are going to commit their lives, not just rhetoric. It's easy to talk, but we need people that are going to work the ground to make sure that we deliver the Zimbabwe that we have always envisioned.
Wow. Asibongi mabasakaqedi sazobuya inkulu ingxoxo. I think after a while you haven't seen us. We've had President Umqondisi Moyo from MRP. We've had journalists and political analysts coming in sharing their views, and I think after MRP it is our first time having someone else from a different political party. You are also welcome if you are coming from another political party to come and share your views as he just did, because we believe that we are a platform that gives you the freedom to come and air your views. If you are from Zanu PF and you feel like what he has been saying is not true, come, challenge it, argue, state your facts. If you are from Triple C and you're feeling that there is something that you want to share, because as he said, they believe in alliances and coalitions because they are about the people, not just personality cults or the party Zapu only, but this is about you. What are your thoughts? What are your arguments, your points? Comment, share, like. But before we go, I want to give you a platform to speak to the people. What should people look forward to? Here's Zapu, you're the Secretary General. As you mentioned, what is Zapu promising the people? Speak to them.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I want to appeal to the people of Zimbabwe, particularly those of us that are in the diaspora, is that number one, let's try and find a way of supporting the cause for the people that are at home. For instance, let's send money, 1 rand, 10 rand. I mean, if we have 100,000 people in South Africa giving a political part of their choice, and in this case, because I'm Zapu, saying Zapu, 1 rand a month, it means we have 100,000 to run the political programs that we have. Number two, we need the plight of Zimbabweans to be known. Abantu abase South Africa, make sure that you are in touch, so that you know what's going on ekhaya. Make it known, make it public, so that umhlaba was what our people are going through. Number three, bagithi kasihlele nini i-election libuya kanye in 5 years. Once in 5 years, this plan. Ngaze sikhulume, ngaze sichinge, ngaze sipopote. Ultimately at the moment, the solution here Zimbabwe will come from a vote. Let's plan to go down and register to vote. I know we can say, let's have a diaspora vote. But katisika yikho izanu kayifuni. So before it comes, let's remember that even this right to vote was paid for ngenkalakatha prize, which was the blood and sweat of our fathers. They paid the ultimate price. For us, it should not be a difficult thing to do. It should not be a very huge sacrifice to say once in 5 years you go down, you put an X on a Zapu candidate. But as Zapu, we promise people a government, a devolved government. Uhulumende ongabandlululiyo, uhulumende ongakhetha abantu, uhulumende that promotes people based on merit. Above all, we promise to protect the citizens of Zimbabwe regardless of tribe, gender, race, or any other thing that can be used to discriminate. This is the government that we are promising people. We're promising a Zimbabwe where there's equal opportunities. We're promising people a Zimbabwe where human rights, land and property rights are going to be respected. Promising people a Zimbabwe where people are free to express themselves regardless of their language, regardless of their culture. Because one of the things that is suppressed in Zimbabwe at the moment, the minority cultures and tribes are suppressed. That's why isiTonga singafundwa. That's why isikhalanga singapromotwa. That's why isiXhosa singapromotwa. We promise the people of Zimbabwe to build a nation out of the state that we have. We promise the people of Zimbabwe that the army of Zimbabwe, the police of Zimbabwe, will be used to defend the citizens, not to hunt them down and kill them. We promise the people of Zimbabwe that the resources that are being produced in their localities will be used to develop them. We are going to deal thoroughly with the issue of corruption, with the issue of looting, and things like that. That's why we had a manifesto called Back to Basics. I'll share it with you so that you can share it with the viewers
people, yeah.
so that they know the Zimbabwe that we envision. It is a Zimbabwe where everyone, regardless of where they come from, is able to identify with the national flag and say, I'm proud to be Zimbabwean. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ozizwele. You heard it yourself. As we have said, this is not a platform for only musicians, but it's a platform for business people, for political leaders, for activists, for anyone who has something tangible and valuable to share. Here you have it today. We had Menier Mester Mthulisi Hanana, the Secretary General of Zapu. Thank you so much for joining us today with Podcast Yabantu. Thank you so much for sharing all that you had to share. Nkulunkulu abusise, all the best, and sayidedinda.
Siyabonga.
Thank you.